my first day at work, I showed up at 90 North Main Street, which is where the office was. The man who was the manager took me by the hand and said, "Let's go down to the gas plant." So this was down on South Main Street. And that's where I was going to go to work to get my hands dirty. They were still manufacturing gas here in Concord, using coal, fuel oil, and so forth. Inside that building was an upside-down tank. And it was like an upside-down tin can. And when they pumped gas, made gas down at the plant, they pumped it up to this place, and they had two pipes, one in and one out. They would come in and lift that upside-down can, if you want to call it that. It would fill it, and the other tank would go from here out down to the underground, go out to South Main Street, then go out throughout the whole city. If the gas came in, it had to rise up. And when it did that, this was one of the supports. There were 6 or 8 of them around the big tank. And so to keep the tank, from going like that, you had supports with wheels like that, and they came up and down on these supports.
So what did it sound like when it moved?
Didn't hear anything. Well, once in a while, you might hear a creak on one of these wheels, but you never heard any. You could stand there all day long and might never hear a thing. If we wanted to get more pressure, we had bags of sand that we could put on top of this tank to increase the pressure on the tank to put it out into the city. Down at the very bottom, there was like a tank, and you were pumping out tar and oil combination. Yeah. And if you didn't do that every so often, the thing would fill up so much that you couldn't put any more gas in there or out of there. Wow. So it was something that the gas maker's helper, there were always 2 of them on duty. They'd come up here, they'd operate this hand pump. In the summertime, you might only pump it once a day. But in the winter, boy, you better pump that thing often, because if you didn't, the gas would not flow into the town. This right here led up to the cupola. And there were certain guys that wouldn't go up there. If you weighed 200 pounds or more, nobody would try to climb those stairs and go up to the cupola that's there. At that time, I weighed about 140. I started up, and they said, "Oh, you don't want to do that." I said, "Why not?" Well, he said, if that ladder broke when you were that way up, you'd come ka-thump on the top of this steel tank. This place here was probably about 2 feet, maybe 3 feet wide, and went all the way around the inside of that building. And they said to me, when I first came here, and they took me up to show it to me, they said, "Be very careful." They said, because if you fall into that area between the walkway and the tank, and you go down, it's almost 30 feet, no hope. We'd have to go looking for the body. The water was probably within 2 feet of the top.
Could you see the water as you looked down?
Oh, yeah. Because, heck, I've walked around here many a time, and you could see the water. Even though it's cold in the wintertime, the gas that went in this holder was warm. So it never had ice on the water seals around this tank. Never. Okay. Because the gas coming into it was always above 32 degrees. This tank was limited. It couldn't go. It couldn't hold anymore.
Yep.
So it stopped making gas. And watch. And my God, in a real hot day in the summer, you probably wouldn't make a gas again until probably the next morning.
Yeah.
But in the wintertime, I sweat. You had to have gas in there. There's so many people depending on gas for heating. I tell you, there were days when I was, please, don't get any colder.